My district goes from Rosecrans down south, so it's about 2/3 of Gardena, Harbor City, Harbor Gateway, Lomita, all of Torrance, Palos Verdes, and the beach cities. So it's great to be here, and I'm here to not only talk about what's been going on in Sacramento as your state representative, but also to answer any questions that you may have about any issues and any concerns that you may have. So just a quick overview of what's been going on in Sacramento. You know, we're very proud that you know, things have come a long ways. You know, just 7 years ago, California was facing over $26 billion deficits, and people are starting to talk about California being ungovernable. But now this year we've had a remarkable turnaround, and we're looking at a rainy day fund of over $13 billion. So that's almost $40 billion turnaround in terms of the state's finances. That, of course, is because our economy has been growing. Our economy has been growing faster than most of the rest of the country. Our unemployment rate, although you know we still have a lot of people that are underemployed or you know, having to work 2 or more jobs to make ends meet, but the unemployment rate is at or near the record low in the state. We are proud to be able to do that while at the same time leading the country and showing, especially Washington, D.C., how to get things done. We've been growing the economy and creating jobs while leading the country and the world in the fight against air pollution and in the fight against climate change. So that's something that we're very proud of, and we continue to work on that progress. Some of the big issues that we've been addressing, you know, housing continues to be a big crisis. People, especially the middle class, you know, how can folks in the middle class afford to live, especially in the South Bay and the Los Angeles area? We passed some major bills last year, a $4 billion affordable housing bond that you'll have a chance to weigh in on the June ballot. We've also passed a package of other housing bills, all designed to make it easier and to provide some state assistance on building more affordable housing. In terms of traffic, you know, I know traffic is always a big concern for a lot of folks. Especially in the South Bay, if you have to get on the 405 or the 110. You know, of course, I've been living in the South Bay for over 20 years, and you know, that's been the bane of our existence. We love the South Bay. We love you know, being able to live down here, but of course, if you get to the rest of the LA County, we have to get on those freeways, and a lot of times you know, we spend too much time stuck in traffic. So one of my big priorities is to work with the governor and the mayor of Los Angeles to extend the metro rail line to Torrance. Now, I know that we're not in Torrance now, but getting more people onto public transit, onto the metro system, will get more cars off of our local roads, off of our freeways, get them on public transportation, cut down on traffic, cut down on pollution. I think it's a win-win situation all around. Look for this in the papers, but we're planning in about a month to have the governor and Mayor Garcetti come to Torrance for a groundbreaking of our Torrance Transit Center to extend the metro down to the South Bay. Education. Education has always been one of my top priorities as a former school board member in Torrance, and you know, as a beneficiary of public education, including the privilege of being able to go to the best public university system in the whole country. You know, we have so much to be proud of in California, in having the best, you know, the University of California system, our Cal State University system, our community colleges. We turn out more graduates than any other public university in the country, and we lead the world in many of the academic research, especially with the University of California campuses. And so one of my top priorities is to continue to fight for affordable higher education, affordable college, so that you know, those of us or our kids or our grandkids can continue to benefit from having the best public higher education system in the country. The K through 12 system, I'm one of my bills now, one of my top priority bills is a bill to increase funding for our schools. Right now we're about 41st in the nation in per pupil spending. I want to, my bill is designed to get the state to at least the national average in per pupil spending, so that we can all have programs, the quality of education at our neighborhood schools, smaller class sizes, more art and music programs, more academic support for our students. So those are some of the things I've been working on, but I know folks came out with different issues and different concerns on your minds. So why don't I open up for any questions? Yes, sir.
Seeing as the president's decided, since we're a sanctuary state, he was going to cut our funding with what you guys have done with the budget, it sounds like it's not really much of a threat.
I'm sorry, the sanctuary state?
Well, because the president says he's going to cut our federal funding, sounds like you guys solved the problem by getting us the extra money in the accounts.
Well, I can never say that the problem is solved, because our budget really depends on the economy. So even though Trump has been trying to bash California, I think California is really showing Trump how to get things done. He may say that we're out of control, but the facts are the facts. We have one of the fastest growing economies. We're leading the country in terms of job creation, and we're doing it while at the same time, like I said, we're not relying on all that coal that he's been talking about, such a champion for. I mean, we're doing it by championing clean energy and fighting against climate change. So, yeah.
Do you think you can keep them from offshore drilling?
Yes. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's been another one of my top priorities. I have a bill that's in the state legislature that seeks to basically cut off Trump's latest proposal to reopen offshore oil drilling. We've had for over 30 years a bipartisan consensus, bipartisan support to protect our beaches and our ocean, to avoid, the disaster that we saw back in 1969, the Santa Barbara oil spill, as well as, more recently in the Gulf of Mexico, the Deepwater oil spill. I think whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, we can all agree that California's coast is one of our most beautiful assets, and that the offshore oil drilling is not worth it. And so I'm fighting back against Trump to protect our coast and to stop the offshore oil. Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about affordable housing, personally, my rent went up $225 a month in January, and then another $250 taking place in May. That's a $475 rent increase in 5 months.
5 months? Wow.
So, and I have went around to the different 62 and up to try to get on the waiting list, and they are closed. They're not even taking names. So when you talk about affordable housing, it's in relation to building more, so the demand isn't quite so drastic, and the rents will become more affordable. Is that?
Yeah, I mean that's the basic, big picture concept, is that what's really driving these skyrocketed home values as well as rents is that I just saw a statistic just a couple of days ago. We're 49th in the nation in per capita housing supply. So that really captures it all. It's supply and demand. We need to build more housing. But that's something that I'd like to ask folks in Gardena and South Bay. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges in building more housing is people don't want to compromise the quality of life in your neighborhoods. There's concerns that if you build more housing, you'll get more traffic, you'll get more impact on parking in your neighborhood. So it's that's, frankly, one of the biggest challenges in terms of building more housing.
Well, I think people would be willing to endure the traffic if it really was affordable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for people that are on fixed income and becoming retirement age, it's driving a lot of people out of here. And so that's my big concern is keeping a roof over my head.
Sure, yeah. You know, I mean, one of the solutions, I believe, is that we need to spread the wealth in the state of California. Right now, like most of the jobs are, and most of the people are focused on the coastal areas. You know, we love the South Bay, we love the weather, but you know, the more people that want to enjoy the same things that we enjoy, the more expensive the housing, the rents become in Gardena and throughout the South Bay. And so we're trying to encourage more economic development inland and throughout the state. And we're seeing some of that taking place. I mean, Riverside County was the fastest growing county in the state of California this past year. And you know, rather than folks, I know a good number of folks that commute all the way from Riverside County to LA because the jobs are out here. Well, if we can create more jobs inland, create more jobs in the Central Valley, create more jobs in the rest of the state of California, so that not all the jobs have to be concentrated in the Los Angeles metro area. I think that's got to be one of the long-term solutions.
Thank you very much for hosting this event. First of all, it's great that you want to hear from Situate. I want to know where you currently stand on SB 10, the bail bond reform. Okay.
So there is a proposal in the legislature to enact bail reform. Basically, the principle upon which bail reform is based is that someone's freedom should not be based on how much money they have in the bank account. You know, if you're arrested for a crime, you know, oftentimes if you're rich, you know, even if you may be a violent criminal, you can bail yourself out, and if you're poor, you often have to wait for your day in court in jail and run the risk of losing your job, being separated from your family, and so, you know, I support the basic principle of bail reform that people's freedom should not be based on how rich they are. I'm working on bail reform to make sure that we can actually implement bail reform without compromising public safety. You know, again, I think the fundamental principle of bail reform is that people should be released based on considerations like their likelihood of reoffending as well as the likelihood of their flight risk. You know, so the concept I support. We're working through the details now. I'm hoping to get to the point of supporting bail reform in a way that doesn't compromise public safety.
Doesn't the bill also allow for an assessor to come in and actually assess the risk that this person would pose if they were released back into the community?
Of course. So again, all of the proposals make sense, but you know, of course, it's the actual implementation and whether we have, you know, the funding, figuring out where the funding is going to be coming from. You know, courts have been underfunded for many years, and one of my concerns is that, you know, I want to make sure that we can make it work, given the realities of our already overburdened courts. But we're in agreement that the fundamental principle of bail reform is something which is.
I am an employer, and I have 2 employees currently being affected by this. And they're kids, and they are better suited being at work. They're not a flight risk. They have no money. They have nowhere to go. They literally grew up in Wilmington and didn't see the ocean until they started working for our establishment. So most of these kids, it's really a no-brainer. If you have no money and you don't have a passport, you're not going. So I don't, so I really hope that you really don't take too much time, I mean, to just really look at it as simple as that. If you have no money, you're not going. So, so I've been going to these court dates, and they always get pushed back because the public defender can't show up, doesn't show up, and they're languishing in there, and now they cost me money because now I've trained them, now I have to hire new people, and now when they come out, I feel morally obligated to allow them to come back and have some kind of work so that they could get back up off their feet. So it's going to cost me more money on the back end. So while our state is prosperous, I really think that if we can find the money, we can find the way to just make it as simple as this 19-year-old kid ain't going anywhere. He should be out. And so I'm just really grateful that you're here, you're hearing this out. But just as a small business owner who tries to employ these kids that really need a job, not jail, I hope that you take this in consideration because it really, really is detrimental to this kids.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, especially as a small business owner, it's you know, I'm hearing you know, from a lot of people that I agree with, that it's a fundamental injustice that people should not be held just because they don't have the money to bail themselves out. And so, fully in support of that. Again, I just want to make it work so that public safety is.
Yeah, I understand. And one other thing is, it's morally, look, we're going to pay it somewhere. I mean, if they languish in jail, we're paying. So might as well just have them out earning a living for themselves. And it also goes into the housing. Most people just need to stop thinking about themselves and their own point of view and think about what is morally good for our whole community, which is people need housing, we need homes. And if we band together, we can make it happen. But we can't have just a group of greedy maximizers who want to maximize and capitalize and look at the average citizen. So we really look to our politicians to be able to communicate that. Because, you know, we're all in it together. You know, I mean, I could not run my business without all these kids, the dishwasher, all of them. And so, you know, same thing as just a citizen living in a community that knows that people need housing.
Is your business in Gardena?
And my business is in Torrance,
Okay.
but I'm looking at Gardena for our next location. So that's the other reason why I'm here. It's like, okay, how are you going to be looking out for Gardena and all the citizens?
All right.
So thank you.
I appreciate you sharing.
This relates to an issue that happened a few years ago. You were involved in it. At that time, you were with the state attorney general, therefore you could not get too involved. But it has to do with the sale of a not-for-profit senior group called Cable, and it was sold to Pacifica, and there were 13 provisions that were set forth by the state attorney general that we are concerned about. Each year, it's supposed to be evaluated, and this should be in 14 million. That has happened the last 2 years. From what I read, Pacifica has done what they do, and I know people in 3 of the 4 places involved, and Pacifica seems to be doing a good job. They are providing the necessary culturally sensitive food, even to the extent they have hired, the people they hired who are non-Japanese have learned to speak Japanese to these Japanese-speaking people here. They are doing a good job. Our reservation comes in that Cairo doesn't communicate with the community as to what their plans are after that 5-year period is up. And so it's frustrating. We want to know, hey, look, after 5 years what's going to happen? We have people who are on very limited income. We don't want them out on the streets after 5 years. They won't tell us. what their plans are. I mean, it looks good. I'd like to, best case scenario is that after 5 years, Pacific is doing a good job, we tell them, fine, go ahead. But they're supposed to be coming up with funds to supplement the shortfall of income that these people have and they can't pay the full amount. We'd like to have cable fill in with that, to supplement that income. And we need your support. I'm here to ask you if you could support us either to the extent of being on a panel, providing your input, because you're not talking to us.
Okay.
The cable board is just shut us off.
Okay.
And
All right.
in fact, we're having a big rally down in Little Tokyo this
Today,
afternoon.
yeah.
And so that's the concern, because the money that was raised came from the community. So these people are dealing with not their own money, they're dealing with community money. And that's the other frustrating part,
Let me,
Yes.
thank you, Phil, for bringing this important issue. So just to get everyone up to speed on the basic issue, we're basically talking about a big development, especially in the Japanese American community. One of their facilities is was in Gardena, and it's basically it's a nonprofit senior health care facility that was sold to a for-profit operator. And so, but I think this is a universal issue that all of us are concerned about, which is basically the lack of affordable senior health care facilities in all of our communities. And this has really created an uproar specifically in the Japanese American community, because this nonprofit for decades was providing a culturally sensitive and affordable senior health care to the community for many years. So yes, I have been working on this issue. Last year I introduced a bill that was signed into law that strengthens the Attorney General's oversight authority over the sale of these nonprofit senior health care facilities to for-profit, so that the Attorney General has a greater legal authority to be able to stop or to impose stronger conditions, so that we can ensure that culturally sensitive, affordable senior health care can continue to be provided. Specifically on the issue of Cato, I have been in contact with Cato. They are working on plans, but I don't want to breach their confidence. I'm going to leave it up to them to communicate to the community as to what their plans are, but I know that they are working on plans. For me, I told Cato and I told other stakeholders that I want to lead by getting stakeholders together to build a new South Bay senior health care facility. And I've had conversations with Leona Hiroka, the president of Cato. I've also been talking with folks like Bill Watanabe to try to bring folks into this conversation. But the bottom line is there is a desperate need for senior health care facilities in all of our communities. And I recognize that. I'd be happy to speak on any panel that you're organizing. But appreciate you coming all the way from the San Fernando Valley to raise the issue. Bill and I, we've known each other for over 20 years, and I look forward to working together.
40 years.
Well, you've been working on this issue for 40 years. So, thank you. Before I go any further, I want to thank the city of Gardena for hosting our town hall meeting today, and I want to give special thanks to our great councilman for the city of Gardena, Councilman Mark Henderson. thank you very
Doing
much.
fine work, Assemblyman, you're doing fine work.
Well, thank you, sir. You know, and we have a great turnout here, and I really appreciate the city for providing this venue. Sir?
Oh, no, I was just, you were talking about the facility of Vermont, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's a shame. And appreciate the owner taking the time and energy for your employees, because most owners would just say, hey, it's not my problem. So appreciate that. But the other problem is first-time offenders for a minor crime have to go to court sometimes 4, 6, 10 times before it's settled, and that's time from work, during the day and everything, and it should be a more fast-track way for them to say, okay, what do we got here? Okay, nonviolent, you know, this is minor crime, first-time offender, okay, let's fast-track this, get it over with, fine, and be done with. Okay. There should be something, you know, to help these young people out.
Because there's a lot of people making money. Because I've been there over a dozen times at different little court arraignments. Supposedly they're going to be finally arraigned, and they're not. But there's a whole lot of people earning behind this. So it's a big business, and they're not really beholden to get these kids out anytime soon.
Sure.
You know, and it costs us, the taxpayer, more money to house them than have them go back to their job. You know, and thank you for your kind words. I'm proud to be the type of business owner who cares about their employees. This is precisely why the business is thriving, because we care about our employees, and our employees care about our guests.
What kind of a business?
We're a restaurant brewery. And
We need that.
We got to support your brewery. What's your brewery?
Hot Plate Brewery.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. That's a fancy.
I'm a customer.
Yeah, so, you know, so it goes hand in hand. So if I don't care about them, you know, they're not going to care about my guests. And so I'm doing it for the very reason that I care about my guests. And, but, like I said, a lot of people are making a lot of money, and to the detriment of these kids, and you and I are paying for it.
Sure. So, first of all, let me assure you that that I've never accepted any, you know, campaign contributions from the bail bond industry. And I appreciate your you know, looking out for your employees. I wish all small businesses were as committed to their employees as you are. And last but not least, I want to make sure everyone knows that we have a great craft brewery community in the South Bay, and in fact we're having a craft brewery roundtable on Monday, which you're welcome. I don't know if you're coming or if you're,
yeah, we'll probably.
Okay, all right, but yeah, you know, from Gardena to Torrance to the beach cities, we've become a mecca of some of the best beer in the state of California. I'm proud of that. It's creating jobs, and it's a real local industry that's growing. So thank you for sharing.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to bring a petition over here. The petition is a lot of traffic on my street
Okay.
because on the next street, then they close. I don't know why.
Van Ness?
The next street, they are closed. I live into the 160 Cruz and close to Magnolia. The all traffic coming to my street.
Okay. So I am your state representative. Normally, local traffic issues are your councilman.
Well, we gotta be careful, because one of the challenges we have in Gardena is that because we're bordered by the Harbor Gateway, unincorporated,
Sure.
and so we gotta I'll get exactly where you are, so I can figure out who can assist you with the assistance, because I do my open city hall, and I had some community folks come in hopping mad about an issue, and we discovered that they live in the Harbor Gateway side, but they have Gardena mailing address, so it's 90248. So we have 902474849. Depends on which 474849 you live in determines exactly where you're represented.
So there are Gardena mailing addresses that are actually Harbor Gateway.
Okay.
I'll follow up.
Okay. All right. No, it's maybe someone who hasn't asked a question yet.
I'm from the city of Lomita, and a friend over here. You're of Gardena, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're homeschooled this year.
Okay.
And right now, I'm not sure if you're aware, there's a couple of bills going through that are looking at different ways of regulating people who are homeschooling as through the private school option. And I think some of this is sparked by a few recent cases in the news, the Turpin case, and I think they're really misguided. We have a lot of homeschoolers in the South Bay. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And
Did we speak at the Women's March?
I was at the Women's March.
Okay.
I did not speak at the Women's March, but I was.
Someone else spoke with me.
Yes, and I'll see you at the march later on today.
Yes.
But we just feel like, obviously, these regulations that they're trying to put on us, I think are unnecessary. I think the people who choose this private school option, we don't get any money from the state. We don't get any support from the state. And we are parents who are more invested in our kids. I think that we have less, I think we probably have less abuse and a lot less things because we really choose this path to focus on our kids. And I think a lot of these regulations are, I think they're going to drive people underground, which is worse for the few people that are perhaps neglecting or abusing their kids. They're just not going to register at all. They're going to go underground. This is, I think, I've lived a lot of places. My husband works in film, so when he's on location, we travel. I've homeschooled in Australia, I've homeschooled in Montreal, I've homeschooled in China. And the places with more regulations, it drives more people underground. I think if people want to start thinking about what's happening in this homeschool community, I think they need to know, I think it doesn't need to come from, we're going to tell you how it is. They need to ask us, like, how can they support us? Because one of the things we really push in our own community is meeting at local park days. We have a local park day that meets every Wednesday throughout various locations in the South Bay. There's tons of groups. And we try to draw in people, and we look out for each other. And if we have a bunch of regulations, we worry that those people on the fringes who already think the government's after them, which is not the majority of us, are going to go underground. So I think there's a sense that we're being attacked. And there's a sense, just a bunch of people just went up to a big rally up in, was it Sacramento? Were they there? And it turned into a big Republican rally. Because people feel like the Democrats are not supporting the homeschoolers. And a lot of us were really upset by that because it's not about Republican, Democrat, all of that. But again, the people who are on the fringes are not really feeling that support from the Democratic side of being on our side. And it would be not, like I see people posting, it has really energized our group. I don't know if you're getting calls, but for sure, we're getting daily action reminders to call our senators, to call our assemblymen.
Okay.
And,
Okay,
and
so-
it's turning into a political issue of Republican, Democrat.
Okay.
And I really, people posting letters from their Republican assemblymen and senators who are saying, of course we support you, and it would be nice on the other side to say this is not a political issue.
All right, so let's try to fix the problem.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the case where we found that there was a family that was enslaving their children in their homes, and yet they were registered with the California Department of Education as a state certified homeschool was and is a problem. But we don't want to overreact in ways that may hinder legitimate homeschools. I support legitimate homeschools. I know that parents, for a wide variety of reasons, choose to homeschool their children. Fully support that. So if you can follow up with my office and talk about the specific parts of the bill that you feel is an overreach. I'd be happy to look into it and see if we can make some changes. Yeah, so on that note, I want to introduce Cody Bridges is our main Gardena guy. And Melissa Ramoso is our district director. And earlier we had, oh yes, Jen Hardy is also, she is our caseworker. She is someone that can walk you through some of your individual challenges involving state agencies, state benefits, and so all of us are here to serve you. We have our South Bay District Office in Torrance, which is the center of our Assembly District, at Carson and Madrona. But if we can be of help, such as addressing this homeschool bill, please contact us. So welcome.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Could you just give a quick status on the hydrofluoric acid issue at the refinery?
Okay. So, how many folks here are aware of the hydrofluoric acid issue with the Torrance Refinery? Okay. About half. So this is an issue that became a big concern in Torrance and the surrounding communities after the February 2015 explosion at the Torrance Refinery, which at that time was owned by ExxonMobil. Since then they've sold to another company called PBF Energy. But basically, the Torrance Refinery is one of 2 refineries in the entire state that uses this highly toxic chemical called hydrofluoric acid that if it's ever leaked in any significant amount, it has the chemical propensity to form this toxic cloud that can drift for potentially miles depending on which way the wind is blowing. I introduced the bill last year to try to eliminate the use of this highly toxic chemical, not just at the Torrance Refinery, but at the other refinery, the only other refinery in California that uses this chemical at the Wilmington Refinery. The bill has been met with strong resistance, not just from the oil companies, but from workers and the labor unions that represent the workers that work at these refineries. So I've always tried to emphasize that I'm looking for a win-win situation where we can eliminate that toxic chemical while creating jobs for the workers by employing them for any transition to a safer alternative. But it's been a big challenge. It's the bottom line. And so right now, the Air Quality Management District, the AQMD, a local air pollution regulator, they are debating whether or not to adopt a rule to ban this toxic chemical. So my bill's been held because of all of these, all political opposition. If folks want to weigh in on this debate on how we can make the refinery safer without jeopardizing the hundreds of good union jobs at the Torrance Refinery, please direct your comments to me. That's kind of where we're at.
Quick question on that. Have they been using this chemical forever, or is it something new that they start using?
They've been using it at least since the 1950s.
Okay. So it's always been there. It's always been a danger, more or less. And then to use a different type of chemical that would be safer because of the increased price of gas, is that the issue too?
No, the concern, well, they've been saying that, well, if the refinery has to shut down, then that would increase the price of gas.
Oh, yeah.
But, so, again, I've been saying, well, I don't want to shut down the refinery. I just want to make it safer by trying to get the refinery to transition to a safer, less toxic alternative. Most refineries in the state of California use the safer alternatives.
Okay.
Yeah. So it should be able to do it.
You know, because I know every time they change something, they have to redo the plumbing and maybe bring in new equipment and stuff like that. So they would have to shut it down to redo it so that the new chemical process will work right.
Yeah.
So,
But I think that those are the weighing of the interests, you know, where, because it involves all the retrofitting of pipes and so forth. I mean, those are jobs that can be created, in a win-win situation. More jobs for the pipe fitters and all the refinery workers, and a safer alternative to the community. There we go. Well, I've been making that argument. Maybe you can help me push it through. But yeah, please weigh in with the AQMD if you can help out.
How responsive is the AQMD? Do they have a comment line? Is there a way for citizens
Yes.
to reach out to them?
Yes.
I bet most people don't realize how close Torrance and the south end of Gardena came to
Yeah.
losing their lives the day
Yeah.
that fireball
Yeah.
happened.
Well, thank you for raising that comment, because most of the concern has been focused in Torrance, but I mean, it's right on.
It depends on which way the wind was blowing.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'd love to engage more Gardena residents on this debate. But it is, basically, there's been studies conducted where if there's a leak of this hydrofluoric acid, it can drift for up to 3 miles, within a 3-mile radius of the Torrance refinery, which definitely includes Gardena. So, folks want to learn more about the issue, please contact us.
Yeah, for those, for safety's sake, has there been any research or studies done regarding hydrochloric acid and cancer getting more prevalent around the area or within so many miles around the area of the factory, so that the case of AQMD could become stronger when they have to defend it and present it to the public? Do you want this? And also too, how many people that have been living there for a long time, and have been having all these cancers? Because I know that there are a lot of cancer coming out more, and also diabetes and all those kinds of chronic sickness. So it could have been the effect of that too.
Yes. So the AQMD is definitely, they have a team of scientists that has been gathering the public health issues surrounding this toxic chemical. This chemical is basically so toxic that if you're exposed to it, you would experience like burn symptoms, including burning of the inner linings of the lungs. We're not talking about cancer, we're talking about immediate death. There are other chemicals that and there are other issues with the refinery. I mean, whenever you see like the big flames coming out of the smokestacks at the refinery, that's what's called flaring. They're actually it's a safety mechanism where they're burning up a lot of the built up excess gas fumes. But every time they do that, that is emitting excess toxic chemicals, including some potential cancer-causing chemicals. So that's another issue that I've been trying to focus on making the refinery safer. Last year I introduced 4 bills, all designed to try to make the Torrance refinery safer. I got 3 of the 4 bills signed into law. One bill is a bill that requires air quality monitors around the surrounding areas of the refinery. Second bill is a bill that requires effective community alert system coordinating state with local agencies to make sure that in the case of any significant emergency, that local residents would be alerted. And third, a bill to create this interagency task force, to make permanent this interagency task force, so that we coordinate our efforts on how to make the refinery safer. those are all now law. The fourth bill, which is the bill to try to eliminate this toxic hydrofluoric acid, that's the one that's been but if you want to get involved on this issue, please contact my office. One point that I want to make is that I don't know if folks heard, but there's a big march that's taking place in the beach cities today. March for Our Lives is part of a nationwide effort to fight back against the gun lobby and to basically fight for common sense gun safety laws. And so before we scheduled this coffee, they scheduled, after we scheduled this coffee, they scheduled this march. I have to get over to this march. I want to invite everyone to come to the march, which is going from Manhattan Beach to Hermosa Beach. If you care about the epidemic of gun violence, if you care about protecting our children, if you care about all the gun shootings at our schools and our universities and our communities, and if you think that there can be a more common sense balance between people's right to have guns versus banning things like assault weapons and universal background checks, as I support, then please come on after the march. I want to be fair to folks. You came out here, and so I'm going to push the limits of having to leave here. But
good morning.
yes.
My name is Michelle Ramos. I'm representing El Camino Village this morning. Thank you for coming out to Urban South Bay this morning. I'm also representing 41 million Americans who take time off from their careers and their lives to care for their aging parents. I fit within both categories. The 41 million Americans care for their aging parents, but also the 15 million Americans that care for aging Americans within the nation. It's something you don't plan on doing, but it's a matter of honoring thy parents, and it kind of follows up on one senior health care issue we were talking about earlier. You take time off from your career, and then you find yourself in a position where you're dealing with a gap in employment. And it's really unfortunate. In my case, although I cared for both parents, during the time that I was caregiving, I was also a consumer advocate. So I spent a lot of time in Sacramento, lobbying my legislators, speaking before committee hearings, press conferences, etc. So what I'm asking is see if you would consider offering legislation that would offer some protections for the 41 million Americans that take time off from their careers, because I consider it a public service. And there's protections for other people, but there's actually Facebook groups forming, I relaunch groups forming of people in the same situation, where you end up taking 10 years off, whatever the case is. You find yourself in this gap, and within that gap, you did another type of public service that is probably more substantial than had you stayed in your previous line of employment, but it's still considered different because it's not under the frame of payment. So if it's something you would consider for your
Okay. Yes. Well, I've always supported our in-home supportive service folks. I recognize that it's meeting a real need of people that need the health care at home, the alternatives to folks like you that provide these in-home care for our elderly would be much more costly in terms of government, social workers, and healthcare workers going to homes. And so I think both from a compassionate point of view as well as from a fiscally responsible point of view. I recognize that workers like yourselves provide a great service, taking care of your parents and family members or help. I've always supported the IHSS workers, and be happy to talk about any bill ideas that you might have to help.
How about the homelessness for
Okay.
I work at a preschool in Gardena, but I'm also a member there at a church. It's called First Presbyterian Church of Gardena, and it's on Redondo Beach Boulevard and Gramercy. And we've been having a lot of homeless people sleep in crevices, and we have to tell them, please get up and move, and sometimes they don't respond, so we have to tell them. Sometimes they're not, responsive or quick.
How could you repeat what you said? We're
Yes.
having trouble hearing.
So, thank you for raising the issue. The concern is the growing homeless population in the city of Gardena, specifically in the neighborhood of the First Presbyterian Church in Gardena. The slow response from the police or from any government, is that one of your concerns?
No, the police are quick to respond, but sometimes it's just they leave, the homelessness leaves a lot of it's just trash and stuff there. Okay. And it doesn't really look good on the public.
Yeah, no, it's a big challenge. I mean, throughout Los Angeles County and throughout our state, but especially in LA and in the San Francisco Bay Area, I mean, it is a crisis. There's no way around it. Here I started off talking about how California is the sixth largest economy in the whole world, and yet we have people living and dying on the streets. This really goes back to what we started talking about in the beginning in terms of the affordable housing crisis, as well as it's a host of other issues. The need for more mental health services, to help people before they end up on the streets. I think those are among the biggest issues that's involved in this homeless crisis. So I talked earlier about the state's efforts to support more funding and more support to build more affordable housing and to increase the housing supply. There is all kinds of creative solutions being proposed about, and people are talking about putting homeless in these converted warehouse containers. I mean, anything to get them off the streets. We have a related challenge where not a lot of people want to check into the shelters that are being provided because they have rules and regulations for checking into these shelters. So we recognize that it's a crisis, and we're working hard, but it's going to take a serious commitment from all of us. A lot of it involves funding, and if we're going to spend more money to support the building of more affordable housing and to provide for more mental health services, and where is that money going to come from? I spoke earlier about how we need to do more to support our K through 12 schools. So it's a question of whether we reallocate our funding priorities based on our limited limited budget, or we look toward expanding the budget by looking at potential new taxes. I hear from most people that they don't want new taxes, and so that's always been a challenge. But we're working on it. We recognize it's a crisis, but there are no easy solutions.
Can hear you. I said, as a homeowner in Gardena, and I think every place else, I think we feel like we're being screwed. Because every time we look around, property taxes are increasing every year. So we are asked to support us, ourselves, just homeowners. And I don't know what the equilibrium is between the two, because when people go to, you know how the bond measures are there every year. We have to vote on the bond measures, but in the meantime, seeing as if the state, they don't deal within their means, but we have to deal within our means, because once we're retired, we have no more income coming into our house. So it's a problem for us too, because people say, oh, you have equity in your home, but you can't count the equity, it's just there, you can't use it. You know, if you use it, you have to pay it back, so where do you get the money to repay it? So it's a problem for everybody. It's not that people, homeowners aren't greedy, you know, it's just a catch-22 for the homelessness and for the homeowners. So I don't know how it's supposed to be worked out for us, because if you're a renter and you pay for a landlord, he can make you pay more, but homeowners have nowhere to get any more money from besides Social Security or whatever, and that's a limit.
So thank you. You know, I want to end on your comments, but you know, you are reminding all of us that it's you know, it's hard enough to make a living middle class in the state of California, especially in the South Bay area, where housing is so expensive and the cost of living is so high. And so I completely agree with you. That's why I generally you know, hate taxes, and we want to try to balance all of these challenges without putting more burdens on us. We appreciate it. So, you know, I'm very sorry, but I'm scheduled to speak at the March in the Beach Cities. If this is the Cato question, or David, you know how to get a hold of me, and so we can follow up. Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to wrap this up. If you have any other questions or concerns, please contact our Torrance District Office. We will have more of these. Am I coming? I'm coming back for another community.
Yeah, we actually have a senior scam stopper next week at the Gardena JCI. There's some member will be there, so if you also want to address anything,
okay.
it's available.
All right. Thank you very much for everyone for coming out. I hope it's able to.
I want to ask some questions.